Okay, so you guys kind of start there. You see, he's working on this invention, and I read in the early days. I mean, it seemed like it relied on it had some kinks, and in order to turn this into an actual product, it was a journey.
Oh, it sure was. So Jack was a brilliant inventor, but look, technology sometimes takes a while to mature. The early generation tasers, they didn't realize they would be classified as a firearm because they used a small gunpowder propellant to launch the dart. Under federal law, if you use an explosive to launch something, you're a firearm. They didn't even know that, and so they had shipped thousands of units in the mid-'70s when the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms came knocking and said, you guys are selling unserialized, unmarked, illegal firearms. And that effectively shut the company down. He tried to redo it again in the 80s. It failed again. And then in 1993, when I was 23 and he was 73, I found him through 411, which some of your viewers may not know what that is. Before Google was a thing. I got his phone number, called him, and showed up on his doorstep. And there's this sort of magic moment where this 73-year-old, colorful, brilliant, at times cult inventor, like the stereotype of the mad scientist, and me, the 23-year-old kid, fresh out of college, like, hey man, let's give this another shot. Next thing I know, a couple weeks later, we're building stuff in his garage.
And I read it at Harvard. You studied, was it computer science or
it was neurobiology?
Neurobiology, right?
Although they don't have a specific categorization for that, so it was biology in general, and then I did coursework focusing on neurobio.
And were you thinking of heading in a more medical science direction?
So I actually showed my son my Harvard application. We found it when my parents passed away. It was in their house. And I wrote my college entrance essay that I wanted to build robotic limbs. Okay. So like I wanted to build Luke Skywalker's robotic hand. I was fascinated. So I wanted to study neurobiology because I was just fascinated by this idea of the human-machine interface. And it turned out to be surprisingly useful. I had no idea I would end up here. But once I did, it is actually really useful because we're a nerve stimulator. Like we are a machine that interfaces to the human body, but for a different reason, to temporarily swamp your communication system with electrical overload so that we can paralyze your muscles and put you down as safely as possible.
Yeah. Okay. And because, I mean, it is a thing to Glenn's point, there's this element where this was always going to be a journey. You've got the whole firearm thing. You've got the liability thing. You've got just the nature of what you're trying to do, whether people see this as helpful or harmful. It seems like a thing that it would take a 23-year-old to want to go do, because if you knew what you know now, you might not have gone on to try to tackle this.
Oh boy. Yeah. The first 7 years were brutal. I had friends who came out to visit me and mocked me incessantly. I've got a video of one of them. He went on to be one of the senior guys at Uber and different tech. And there's a video of him when I was 23. They came to visit me and they would film me in my little park office, excitedly telling about the taser. And then when I'd leave the room, they would film each other making fun of me. They're like, shocky gun. We tried to raise money from VCs. Like nobody would touch us. Over the first 7 years, we basically drained my parents completely financially. And I was of the belief it was going to fail. I thought we were at the point of no return. Told my dad, stop putting money in. It's over. And he pointed out, well, we owe Silicon Valley Bank $1.5 million. If this fails, I'm getting wiped out. And so okay, Dad. He put the last of his money in. Our other investor, Bruce Culver, matched him. And we had $1 million for our third attempt. And that was what finally hit.
And it worked. And you'd had this one product in the middle of this steering wheel car anti-theft device that it sounded like it gave people a shock if they tried to steal the car. And that one did not work.
That did not work. It was a great learning lesson. So we started with the Taser for consumers. It never really took off. Consumers were skeptical. They thought this thing seemed like a gimmick. But we had a number of consumers say, hey, I'd like to rig this up to protect my car. So as startups do, we rapidly put something together, like literally over Christmas holidays, 1996. We built a prototype and took it to the Consumer Electronics Show of a steering wheel lock that would shock you if you didn't turn it off with the remote. And we had the Auto Taser Challenge in our booth. We'd have people grab it and then challenge them how long they could hold on. And it would shock them. And they would scream and let go. And there was this circus-like energy. We had the busiest booth at CES. We were convinced we were going to make a ton of money. None of us were really passionate about it. And one of the things I share with people when you think about doing a startup, like do something you're really passionate about. If it's authentic, you'll stick with it. when we finally realized what we had built was kind of a freak show product that made for great demos, but nobody was actually buying it, that took us 2 years. And again, had drained the company to the point I didn't think we'd make it. And what saved us ultimately was we pivoted back to, okay, what's the problem we're really trying to solve? Like, we're passionate about creating an alternative to guns. And if we're going to succeed, we had seen some of the warts of the early tech. It was underpowered. Rodney King was shot with an LAPD taser.
I remember that. Yeah.
Didn't work. So they went to their batons with catastrophic consequence. And so, because I had this neurobio background, I was like, okay, let's go design a lab experiment. Let's start back at the basics. How much electricity does it take to incapacitate someone? And I'll tell you, nobody knew the answer, because who like, why would somebody ever do that?
Right.
And so we did the basic science work, got a bunch of patents around it, and then launched, well, when I say a bunch, one initially, and then launched the M26 Taser with zero money left in the bank in December of 1999. And its whole promise was simply that we could lock up the musculature of even the toughest, most focused people, even if they're on methamphetamines or PCP. And it worked.
Yeah.
And just the fact that we delivered on the core problem that we promised to solve ultimately made the company quite successful.